Okay, once you have a Visual Studio 2012, let's see how we can start creating a project in C Sharp. You can either go to File, select New, and select Project. Or as you can see, you can press the keys Control, Shift, and N. Or you can come here and select New Project. Let's select Visual C Sharp, the Windows Forms application. First, we are going to see the visual part of it, and then we are going to start adding code. So let's call this project actually, first project. Select OK. Okay, once um, you do that, you are going to see something similar to this window that I have uh, with what is going to be the window that is going to be generated by the project, which says Form 1. And notice that here we have the toolbox. If you don't have the toolbox, press Control Alternate X and the toolbox will appear. Then you have the Solution Explorer. If you don't have the Solution Explorer, then press Control Alternate L and the window for Solution Explorer will appear, and also the properties. Properties, if you do not have it, then press the function key F4. Okay, so here is our form. So this is kind of like having a canvas where you're going to design your project. Certain amount of code has been generated just by creating, opening this project. We're going to see that, for example, here, if we go to program.cs, this has been created. As you can see, we see the keyword using, which is basically establishing what is a namespace. Then later we're going to talk about the namespaces and the name of the project, our namespace, which is first project, and the classes that are inside of this project, and of course the code that is generated for the form. So let's go back here to design. See here on design, we are going to have the visual aspect of the generation of the project. Now, first of all, let's click start here. This is basically running the project, and that's all that we have. It's just an empty window that we can close, expand, minimize, and this is the name, Form 1. So let's close it. So now let's see some of the things of this window, some properties. We can go here, and then here you see this is the name of the object or the window, and basically this is using the system, Windows, forms, and is a form. So that's basically the path where Form 1 is actually created in the different namespaces. Now, to change, for example, this title here, we will have to go to the property that says text, and then we can type here there are many other properties that we will take one by one, and then as you can see, the title in the window has changed, but then we can change also the name of the form per se. Let's say first project form. See, now anything related to that form, if we need to create code for it, it will use this name. Okay, so showing you some other things that we are going to work. Let's work first with some of the controls that we can actually introduce into first project. Let's say that we are going to add a label. So when we go to common controls, click on that, and they are by alphabetical order. Select label, and you're going to see that now when you go to the window, you can actually click and drag and select the label. Now you notice, even if I drag the size of this label, it went back. That's because one of the properties, which is called auto size. So if we go to auto size and we say, well, I want this to be false, in that case we are going to have a label depending on how big we want this label to be. Also, some other characteristics that we can add to the label and other objects are the background color, or another thing that we can change is the border style, that right now it doesn't have any. Now we have fixed 3D. Actually, the fixed 3D is not noticeable because of this. Let me change the background color. Okay, so now you see. Now this label, as the case of the form, you can see like a caption, and that property in almost any object is always called the text property. So let's go here, label, let's see, I don't know, enter. Actually, let me say select or something like that, enter, and now that property has been changed. This specific label, notice that I didn't change the name. Now the reason to give a name, I am going to give a name only to the objects that I'm going to use in programming, and actually I'm not going to get into programming that much in this video. So let's get into another object, which is the button. Now previously I did select, say, bottom, and then I move it. After selecting, move it to the form. I did that with the label. Now let me delete that. Another way to do it is just double click on the bottom. And then you will have this. Either way, you will have the object, and then later you will have to resize the bottom, any way that you want. Okay, now several things about this is when you create an object like the bottom, this bottom specifically is used to actually hide code behind it. Like, for example, if I run this program, labels are used basically as an output, telling the user what to do, or what value enter in a text box. The buttons are usually used so we can click on it and then something will happen. But for something to happen, we have to create code, which we don't have yet. So before creating any code, what we're going to do is go to the text property, and then we are going to see, let's say, demo bottom, and then I'm going to do this before the D. I'm going to add ampersand, and you're going to see what is going to happen. As you see, demo button, what this is going to do is that when you create code for this button, the user, instead of actually clicking on the button, can also have the alternative of pressing the alternate key and the letter D, and that will activate also the code. So let's go back to the bottom, and then let's give a name. Let's say that we're going to call this demo bottom. We are going to use this format. It's called the camel case, where if we have two or more letters, we are going to start everything lowercase, and the letter, the next word, we are going to, the first letter of the next word, we are going to use a capital. So this is called camel case. So this is demo board. Now notice what is going to happen if I actually double click on demo board. Now it goes to the code that we have seen previously with the namespace first project and the class first project form. Remember that we renamed the form, and we have the form first project form initialize component. That happens every time that you actually that method runs every time that you will open this form, this window. So here I can add any code that I want, and that's the code that is going to be generated. So let me use message box, and as you can see, we have intelligence, and then I'm going to say show. Let me just say hello. That's the whole code. So see, now when we run the project to see how it works, it's our first project. My label saying select button. I select the button and then generates a message that says hello world. Okay, and then it goes away, and then we close. So that's a basic knowledge about working with C# in Visual Studio, working visually. We are going to generate more code, but basically many code is going to be actually generated by Visual Studio depending of what objects do you use. So actually, let me show you here. This is the program that we saw before, and then here the form designer. Now see in the form1 designer.cs, this is the code that is actually generated when you work visually, like you put your objects from the toolbox to the form. Notice that before we didn't have this. See, Windows Form Designer generated code, and now I have label 1, which I entered, and then we have demo button, and this is the code that actually will generate those objects coming from the system Windows. We're going to use forms, and from forms we're going to use a label. From a label class we generate a label 1 object, and from a button class we generate a demo button object. That is the code that is generated when you actually put an object, any object, into the designer. So, for example, I add a text box. Let's see. And if we go back to the designer, see that now we have Windows Forms, text box 1. We haven't named it yet. Okay, so this is a little bit of an introduction of working with Visual Studio 2012 using C#.